My name is Davir Daniels. I'm a clinical mental health counseling graduate student at Villanova. I just happened to sneak in to SJU to do my internship for a little bit, and I'll just be doing some moderating. So throughout, this series, we've invited some of our alumni just to come in, just to talk, have conversations about what they've been up to, careers, in order to help you, right, to give you insight into your own career path and industries to get advice and everything. So today, man, we have the honor of having Emily Shields with us. So welcome, Emily. I just want to read a little bit about her bio. While attending SJU, Emily majored in marketing and minored in communications. She spent 4 years as a manager for the men's basketball team. Some clubs and organizations that she was a part of included Orientation, Delta Sigma Pi, Hawks versus Cancer, and Women's Club Soccer. After graduating in 2018, she started a post-grad internship with the Philadelphia Eagles and was hired to a full-time position after her internship was completed. She is now on her fourth season with the team as a corporate partnership activation coordinator, and she currently lives in Philly with two fellow Hawks. Emily, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to spend lunch with you guys. I'm very appreciative for the honor of being the first one. No pressure. I heard that this is the first for this semester, so I'll try and make it good.
Yeah. So I got a list of some questions for you, which will be followed by some Q&A. And then just to reiterate, audience, feel free, if questions come up, just throw those in the chat. We'll get to those. So let's get started with some career focused questions. Emily, could you describe within your role the core responsibilities and what a typical day or week looks like for you?
Yeah, I think it's funny hearing you read back my bio, corporate partnership activation coordinator. It's like the longest title in the world. But yeah, so basically I work in corporate partnerships for the Eagles. So basically we kind of help to maintain the external relationships with external partners. So anyone from like Lincoln Financial Group, who obviously is on the name of our building, to NovaCare, who's on the name of our practice facility. Our team kind of is the messenger between the team and then those external partners. So that's kind of what we do day by day. My job kind of consists of anything and everything under the sun, anything from hospitality to events to actual physical marketing that we do, kind of in partnership with our partners. Like if you see, McDonald's, if you're driving through or something like that, and it says proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles on there. A lot of that we kind of do hand in hand with our external partners. So it's a broad spectrum of tasks day by day. The beauty of it is I tend to not have the same day over and over again. For example, today I came in, and then this afternoon we have appearances with two alumni and Swoop at a partners event. So we're going to be sending them out there, and some of our staff will kind of go staff that event. Tomorrow I have events with partners on site. So it's not a typical day where you kind of come in and stay at your desk. It's very hands-on and in person, which has been great. And then, yeah, I think, the NFL is a 365-day calendar, which has been really cool. So in season is a little bit different than off season, but I think for the most part, we stay busy with the regular season. Obviously, then there's postseason and the Super Bowl. And then right after that, we jump right into the draft all over again. And then the summer brings training camp. So it's nice. It's kind of, like I said, a 365-day type of calendar with the NFL, so that it keeps us busy, which is nice.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is just like you were saying, like never, 2 days are never the same. Right.
Exactly.
So I love that. One of the things that I always talk to students about, I love asking this question of what do you go to bed dreaming about? Right. This is a kind of a question that I ask to pull desires and passions that you have. So this next question I have is, when did you know that this was the career path that you wanted to pursue, and what led you to that decision?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when I was undergrad at St. Joe's, obviously, like you mentioned, I majored in marketing, minored in communications. I had some experience with internships and kind of summer jobs and stuff that kind of steered me in certain directions and everything. But for the most part, I started my senior year like an open book. I didn't really have a niche that I was leading towards. I was really open to any and everything in the marketing industry, whether that was hospitality, whether that was advertising or something like that. And it's funny because my roommate at the time, who I actually still live with in the city, she saw a job posting for a post-grad internship with the Philadelphia Eagles on LinkedIn. And she read the whole description. She was like, this is exactly what like you could do. It kind of engaged a lot of like detail oriented stuff and behind the scenes and hands-on. And I'm very much like a detail oriented person. So she kind of matched that pretty seamlessly. So she sent it over to me, and I remember the exact spot I was in. I was in communications class in Marion Hall, and I applied for it immediately. And it ended up just really coming full circle. I think the cool thing was like, I went line by line down the job description, and I was like, I really like this. I really am passionate about that. Like I kind of, before I even noticed that it was with the Eagles, I became very like excited about, what the details and kind of the day by day had the opportunity to be. So I think that was kind of awesome, because at least like, it's amazing working for the Eagles. They're a family oriented program. I think obviously sports are a big deal in Philadelphia, but I think beyond that, I've come to find that my day-to-day job, I'm very passionate about, just as much as I'm passionate about the people I work with and the team that I support, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'm just hearing how much of a journey it is, right? And finding career paths, which brings up another thing that I like to talk about. Like, could you speak to, the people who are open books, like you mentioned, but are missing kind of some of the details? I think you said something really interesting. Like it was a friend of yours that was able to say, hey, like, this is what you would be great at. One thing I always talk about is like, when you're trying to figure out what you want to do, ask the people around you, friends, family, hey, what could you see me doing? Like, could you speak to that, like into the importance of that?
No, absolutely. I think it's such a great, the people you surround yourself with, like sometimes it's scary how much they know you more than you might even know yourself. And I think it's funny too, like in a work or a professional setting as well, like those people see you in action, if that makes sense. Like you're personally doing the action, but the people you surround yourself with like see you from their perspective, which I kind of think helps, especially in like a career setting, because, I am being evaluated. I do have roles that I have to kind of withstand and everything like that. And so you want to make sure you personally are putting your best foot forward. But if you have people around you that are also supporting you and helping to guide you, I think that it's only making you stronger as a person. And I think, St. Joe's was huge for me in that capacity. I think obviously I liked to be very hands-on. While I was on campus, I was at a ton of clubs and organizations, but at the same time, I think I was lucky enough to realize early on where I put myself and who I surround myself with, how that affects me and how I can, two-way street affect the people around me. So I think being active, kind of taking those strides. Obviously, my friend Bridget, I'll give you her name, like she is currently still one of my best friends. So she saw me in action. She knew what I was passionate about, and she was kind of able to make that connection. And I think like St. Joe's sets us up for that, just simply by having great people around us all the time, whether it's professionals, whether it's professors, club leaders, coaches, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Thank you for that. Now I want to talk about, what is the typical career path for an entry-level associate within your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, sports is definitely interesting. I think at the Eagles, I will say internships are huge. I think a lot of people, if you were to ask them, whether they're in the marketing department, on the football side, in corporate partnerships, like kind of where they started, a lot of people will say they started in internships. And I think they might not have even started in that exact department that they're currently in now full time, but they kind of got their foot in the door. Whether it's, like I said, switching from football side to the front office side, or even vice versa. I think, there's a lot of great opportunity within the city of Philadelphia. And I think our sports teams are all very much the same, where any type of, hands-on activity, whether like, you start as like a game day staff person here, or you start as an intern in our ticket office or an intern in our corporate department, like getting the hands-on experience. Doing a little bit of like the down and dirty work, which it's not always glamorous. It's it's a football team. There's a lot of extra hours and you're out in the rain during a game or something like that. So I think, being passionate about doing whatever you need to do in order to kind of get further in your career and kind of putting your head down and doing your hard work. I think internships are kind of where I realized what it takes to be professional and also get your job done, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And Emily and I were kind of chatting before, and I told her how in high school I was a game day staff member, right? So in talking about that, something that I remember is it raining, right? So you're talking about it was a U2 concert, and it was just pouring, and they gave us like those plastic things that's like covers your whole body.
Ponchos.
So yes, the ponchos. And I was like, this is it was a fun day. I'll say
yes.
It was a fun day. But kind of on the heels of that, what do you enjoy the most about your profession, and what is something you wish you would change? I would have changed that day, just that.
I was gonna say, jokingly enough, the weather is heavily dependent sometimes on things, especially with an outdoor stadium. So our game days could be really awesome and like 75 and sunny, or it could be completely freezing and snow on the ground. So no, I think, my favorite part of my job, and I think both internal and external, have just continuously been the people that I get to work with. I kind of alluded to it earlier, but the Eagles are very much a family, and they look out for their people, if that makes sense. I think it was very evident during COVID and these past kind of 18 months, but even more so, we have that team mentality, both physically because we're a football team, but also like kind of behind closed doors too, because, we look out for one another. We want everyone to succeed. We lean on each other a lot, especially in corporate partnerships, because of the fact that my job wouldn't happen if it weren't for a lot of other people in this organization, because, whether it's marketing, whether it's hospitality and events, that's not like my specialty, is basically being the messenger between the two. So then there's a lot behind the scenes that kind of goes into it too. And there's a lot of team members that kind of help in that capacity. And then externally as well, like our external partners are amazing. And I think they have very much come to see that the city of Philadelphia is an awesome place to have marketing, to partner with teams, all that type of stuff. And I think we deal a lot with Philly fans, and it's so much fun to be able to be in front of them and to kind of, obviously winning and losing has a little bit of an impact in how Philly fans are, but at the same time, we wouldn't change it for the world. I think they are for sure the best fans in the NFL. And it's just so nice to still get excited every time I walk into the stadium for a game day, even though this is, now probably like the 4th season of mine that it never gets old. So that's been awesome. I think something to change. This is kind of sports in general, but, obviously win or loss is kind of tough sometimes. I think losing is always, it affects obviously the business side, it affects the football side. And I don't have any hands-on in the outcome of games, obviously. So it's kind of just, timing perspective. But again, I don't know that I would really change that. I think it's maybe more just like a challenge that we kind of overcome together, working through highs and lows. Like I said, we're a team, so we always go through it together. But yeah, I think it's been great, and we're in the thick of the season now. So it's kind of been back to a little bit of normal after COVID. So that's a pretty good feeling, which is nice. Yeah.
And kind of I'm just curious, what does normal look like? And what did that COVID period look like for you with the?
Yeah, we, so both from like Lincoln Financial Field's perspective, and then also like our front office. So a majority of our front office currently is temporarily kind of set up. We have a little bit of flexibility working from home. We worked from home, obviously, throughout all of COVID. And then when we came back in July, we're actually all over at the stadium right now. Our practice facility is basically football and the team, just given all of the COVID protocols that are still in place for our players and anyone that's kind of around them 24/7. And so in order to kind of like make sure that they're protected, majority of the business side is over at the stadium, like I said. But for game days, it's been really nice. Obviously, the city and the state restrict mask mandates, all that type of stuff. So we've kind of been rolling with that. But right now, we're very lucky to be able to open our doors again and to have fans on site for games. So it's been awesome.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, what has surprised you the most about your career?
It's funny. And I kind of, when you sent over this question, I was like, I actually know the exact answer. I currently can never watch sports the same anymore. Given
Really?
corporate partnerships, I immediately just think in work, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
for example,
Yeah.
one of the elements that I oversee on site is entitlement spaces and signage around our building. So anything that's
Mhm.
like, we have an Xfinity gate, or we have like signage that says Lincoln Financial Field. A lot of
Yeah.
that stuff I get to be hands-on behind the scenes with our operations team, our signage companies, to kind of make sure that like all of that's being good to go for games. And so
Yeah.
now when I watch any type of football, basketball, hockey games, I just currently like look immediately at any of the signage or
Yeah.
any of that type of stuff. So it takes me a little while to like zone in on the fact that I'm still currently watching sports. It's just funny that, I think in marketing terms now, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. That is super interesting.
The Super Bowl is like the craziest time though, because between
Oh my
obviously
gosh.
everyone
Yeah.
knows about the commercials. Those are
Right.
obviously like so popular. But then when you see how Super Bowl locations like flip over an entire city and there's different elements that are sponsored on
Yeah.
the field, all that type of stuff, it's very cool to watch. It's anything from like the headphones on the coaches, which was like sponsored by Bose, to the name
Yeah.
of the building, wherever they're playing the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. It's pretty funny.
Speaking of the Super Bowl, so you've been there 4 years. So were you there
I
when they
just missed Super Bowl 52.
you just
Sadly, just
missed
missed
it?
it. Yeah.
Wow.
I was an
Amazing.
intern this season right after. So we got to celebrate a
Gotcha.
lot. We got to be here for when they rose the banner in the
Mhm.
Inter Bowl and everything like that. I just missed the actual win, but
Almost.
it was nice. I was a senior at St. Joe's and was able
Yeah.
to celebrate as a Philadelphian. So that was a
Yeah.
great feeling as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
One of the things that stood out so far is how you emphasize family, how the organization is very family oriented, and even from when I was my brief time there, one of the things I noticed is like all of the people that you interact with on a daily basis, people who are coming from different backgrounds, and not just coworkers, but also fans, right? Interacting with so many people, thousands of people every day. So my question is, what are the ways that you or the Eagles demonstrate a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion? What does that look like?
No, it's a great question. And I think, like you said, you know, family is very much an underlying theme here. And that goes through and through for the players. It goes for the front office. It goes for part-time staff,
Mhm.
everything. And I think what also gets kind of rolled into that type of family is our fans. I think obviously being in Philadelphia, Dee and I has been a very large conversation recently. And it's one coming out of St. Joe's that I became very passionate about just because I think St. Joe's teaches us to care, obviously, about the whole person. And I think seeing the challenges that have been arising more recently, I think the city of Philadelphia has really had to come together. And I think being a
Yeah.
sports team in Philadelphia has kind of given a platform in order to be able to come together. And I think that's what it is. I mean, I'm very passionate. I know I don't ever fully understand being, a white female, but at the same time, I care and I want to be a part of the change. And I think our organization wants to be a part of change. I think St. Joe's has given us a lot of grounds to be a part of the change, and they've kind of emphasized and helped us have a voice in order to see that change. And so I think obviously it's a discussion that is occurring every day. And I think it's one that like I said, I want to be a part of the
Yeah.
change for the future and for our kids and for a better world tomorrow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes all the sense. That's great to hear. Thank you for that. Um, Now I'd like to shift gears to focus on some action items that students can take. And again, just a reminder, you got some questions, throw them down in the chat. But I'm going to ask you about internships in a moment. But for now, what 2 or 3 experiences would you suggest students engage in while in college to help prepare them for entering this field after they graduate?
No, I think that's a awesome question. And I think, one of my favorite activities is the career fair that we do on campus. I think obviously
Right.
I remember walking in there as probably like a first semester junior and just being like, oh my God, where do I start? What do I do? And it's not often that you have to dress up in business professional on campus at St. Joe's. So I think getting to do that is kind of like a mental state. You're like, oh my God, this is real. No, but I think at St. Joe's in particular, like, and the Community Development Center, like you give us all the opportunities literally in front of our face. Like you walk in Hagan Arena and like that opportunity is right there for you. And so I think when it comes to internships and it comes to networking and all that type of thing, I wanted to make sure that I put my best foot forward and I was taking advantage of the opportunities that were given, if that makes sense. So, you know, I know it's hard sometimes, especially as athletes or as heavily, you know, in like dependent in organizations and stuff like that. Like I know there's all different types of commuters, you know what I mean? It's your schedule on campus isn't always going to allow for you to do like a 5-day-a-week internship by any means. But I think between, you know, the different opportunities that Philly gives with however many companies are located here, there's constantly LinkedIn posts about any and every organization posting for part-time interns or even just like support. So I think it's just, you know, I wanted to make sure my eyes were open to all of that. And I think the Career Development Center like definitely helped us to keep an eye out for that type of stuff. So even if it's not fully possible for students to be able to do, like I said, a 5-day-a-week internship or anything, I think like, even if you can give 1 day a week or 10 hours a week or something like that, to maybe not even a full-blown internship, but setting aside time in your schedule to be able to look for jobs, apply for jobs online, work on your resume. Like I think, you know, as a business student while I was on campus, my days were very full, but I think they're not nearly as full as they are now as a professional with a job. So I think, you know, it's just kind of being cognizant and making time for what you want to be passionate about in your future career, and making sure that you kind of give it all that you've got, because it's going to be a long path for your post-grad life. I think obviously I'm not retiring anytime soon. So it's kind of just making sure that you're doing the best that you can with, you know, the cards that you're dealt and everything, and just taking advantage of what St. Joe's has to offer, whether it's internships or even just the resources we're given daily through the Career Development Center or our professors, anything like that.
Yeah. And just a disclaimer for everybody, we did not pay Emily to say, right? Like
you did not. I could go on the record and say that.
I don't know if you could have gave a better answer. That almost felt scripted, but it wasn't. I promise.
I swear it wasn't. I just remember being a terrified junior in college, being like, oh my God, reality is hitting very soon. And I think a lot of people probably felt the same way as myself. I know my roommates did, my friends did, you know, some of them were in certain careers that, or, you know, majors that kind of the process was almost step by step with like accounting or something like that, because if you work for the Big Four, you can do post-grad internships immediately, all that type of stuff. But for some people, like there genuinely is like no direction. And so finding that kind of is on you, but like I said, St. Joe's gives you all the resources to be able to take those next steps. So it's actually just making the effort that needs to happen.
Absolutely. And then you kind of touched on it, but how did your SJU education impact how you work and the career decisions you've made to date?
I think, you know, I will forever say that one of the biggest blessings from St. Joe's was just being like my eyes were open to kind of the world around me, to the city of Philadelphia, to the businesses in Philadelphia. And I think, you know, my education at St. Joe's was not textbook by any means. I think obviously our professors did a great job of teaching us outside of the classroom. And I know that's not always standard everywhere you go. So I think, you know, for me, I wanted to take what I really learned outside of the classroom and move forward with that. And I think, you know, obviously being a marketing major, you're kind of thinking outside the box as a career anyways. But I think my professors really wanted to make sure that we understood that life outside of your 4 years of college, life outside even your career, it takes a lot of drive and it takes a lot of awareness. And I think, you know, I was very lucky to be involved in different organizations on campus that only furthered that knowledge outside of the classroom. And so I think like St. Joe's gives you that without even trying, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think obviously you go home and you study for your exams and you kind of you get through what you need to get through. But at the same time, that knowledge isn't just closed when you shut the book every night. It's
Right.
stuff that you're going to take with you for life, honestly.
Right. Yeah. And then to go off of that, what types of internships should students try to secure to prepare for a role like yours or in this industry in general?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question because in corporate partnerships alone, we kind of see like 3 different sectors. Obviously, there's people for the other 31 NFL teams that are also in corporate partnerships, similar to myself, or there's other sports teams that do corporate partnership. But the cool thing is too, there's what we call like the brand side of things. So that's the Pepsis of the world or the McDonald's of the world that working in that industry is still very aligned with corporate partnerships with the Philadelphia Eagles, if that makes sense. It's a partnership. It's a two-way street. And then there's kind of this third sector too, which we work with a lot of agencies that represent some of our partners, which has been really awesome. I think Philly has some really well-known agencies too. And they kind of deal with more of like the hands-on day-to-day type of conversations. So there's kind of like 3 different areas that really, lead towards corporate partnership. But in sports in general, I think, experience, they always kind of throw that word around for sports, but at the same time, any type of internship or career path that you kind of go into, I think you're going to find the tools that you need and the hard work that you kind of need to put forward for a full-time career. So it's funny that like, I don't think you need to have an internship in sports to be in sports, if that makes sense. I guess that's like the bare minimum of what I'm trying to say. But, I think hard work and passion goes a really long way in sports. And I think, there's all different areas that you can kind of get involved in that lead and cross over to sports anyways. So the team side, the brand side, the agency side, there's all different layers.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we come to a close, I got 2 final questions for you. I think it'll be 2. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see.
Whatever.
I may have some follow-ups, I don't know. But what is something that you wish someone told you when you were in school?
See, this is the hard one. I feel like I can answer the day-to-day stuff for my job, but the hard one is, what do I wish someone told me? It sounds a little bit cliche, but, I think your 4 years at school go by very quickly. And I think a lot of times you get hung up on, I need to ace this test, or like, I need to do this or that, like that you kind of forget to take a step back and like to really live your life. Like, I think I remember just being like finals week, so focused and so nervous on like getting the good grades, which your grades are important. I'm not saying that. I think it's more so just being that, college is a time. I think I found myself the most in college, and I didn't realize that I was going to do that. And looking back now, I realized that. But at the time, I think maybe if someone would have told me to kind of take a breath, like enjoy it, understand what you're doing day by day, like don't just go through the motions, do it with purpose, do it with reason. I think I would look back and be like, oh, okay, I don't need to like completely send myself into overdrive just to make sure that I get the best grade or something like that. I think college is a life lesson. Obviously it's very important between high school and your future career. It's like those 4 years. But at the same time, I truly learned who I was as a person during those 4 years. And so I think just reminding to breathe and to realize, the opportunity that lies ahead of you is a big deal. Yeah.
And you may have the same answer or something different to this next question, but I'm still interested to hear your insight. What is a piece of advice you would give to students then who are interested in this path?
Yeah, I think breathe. No, but other than that, I think patience is another big one that I am not a patient person all the time. I'll be the first to admit it. You can ask my mom, you can ask my dad. And I think our world kind of is going into a place where with technology, with this and that, like people don't have a lot of patience. And I think we need patience in order to kind of survive, not only in your day-to-day life, but to be patient with the people around you, to be patient with your career, to be patient with yourself. I think mental health needs patience. I think, your career needs patience, your passion needs patience, because it's going to work out. It always does. And I know that's kind of cliche to say, but it works out, and, it takes the effort, it takes getting down and dirty, but at the same time, if you're patient and you're putting in that effort, things work out, I promise.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. So listen, we just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was awesome. Christine, I don't know if there are any questions down there, but if there are.
I think we'll give students a second to put them in the chat if they have it. You guys who are in the room, if you have some questions for Emily, you can feel free to let me know. I know I have a couple that I'm curious about, Emily. So I'll give the students time to sort of like think through if they have any to throw at you. You mentioned you did a post-grad internship. And I know sometimes students struggle with the concept of post-grad internship because they think maybe they're settling or they're putting off the real world, which you can't see even of doing like air quotes. And so it can be a concept that sometimes students struggle with. So what was that like for you as you applied for a post-grad internship versus like, this is a full-time job, no end date, paid salary, all that good stuff. What was that process like?
Yeah, no, it's honestly a great question. And I thought the same at the time. I remember being in college and everyone around me was like jumping right in, going to their full-time position, like salaried, contract signed, the whole 9 yards. But for me, I think it kind of helped that I had like an open eye perspective on my future. I genuinely like didn't know where I wanted to go. I think if you had asked me when I was an undergrad, I had a very like strict vision, but then the more I was at St. Joe's, the more I saw the world around me and was involved and genuinely just like looked at the bigger picture. I realized that I wasn't 100% slotted in any area. And so I think the internship term for me, or post-grad internship, was like really exciting because it showed me that like, okay, I can do this. I can get a lot of practice. I can better myself. But at the same time, there's a lot of opportunities still out there. Like if I don't love it, I don't have, what I mean? I don't have to sit and give it 2 years or whatever's time. So I think there's a lot of opportunity with post-grad internships. And I think, like you said, you don't hear them a lot. I think sports is one place where you will hear them a lot just because there's certain niches in sports that people want to get into and they're not always taught by the book, if that makes sense. So, and I think corporate partnerships was a perfect example of that because I learned a lot about marketing. I learned a lot about hospitality. I think I networked a lot at St. Joe's, but it kind of takes experience like at the Eagles to understand what the day-to-day stuff is going to consist of. And there's no better time to learn those day-to-day tasks than in an internship, regardless of if you're undergrad or post-grad personally.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Great insights there. And I see a question from Caitlin in the chat. Did you ever think about doing co-op? What is your opinion on co-op versus internship? Anything to say about that, Emily?
Yeah. So I heavily thought about co-op before I went to St. Joe's. I thought it was so cool to be able to get like real experience outside of the classroom, outside of campus at an actual organization or company or something like that. Personally, with the stuff that I got involved in on campus, my schedule, especially with basketball and everything like that, it was harder to do a co-op program just with, traveling, all that type of stuff. But I had some friends that did food marketing co-ops, regular co-ops, and they loved them and they got hands-on experience immediately, which was amazing. And so in my eyes, I kind of view co-op as like during school experience. And then my post-grad internship was like right after school experience. So I wouldn't say that there's, co-op versus internships. I kind of think they do a lot for the person, and whatever time you're able to commit to either option, I think you won't regret. So if you're able to do the co-op and you get that experience in the 4 or 5 years that our programs have at St. Joe's, or if you do the summer internship, you're going to only be bettering yourself either way. So I don't think it's like a versus thing. I think it's just looking at your greater picture, looking at what your passions are, and seeing where you're able to kind of put your time and your efforts.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. I think with experiential learning can take a lot of different forms, right? And for different people, it fits in differently. So
yeah,
taking that bird's eye view of what experiential learning will help me get to where I want to go, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Emily, I have another, I don't know if you have another question, but I have one more question for you. As we see if students throw any more in the chat. I was recognizing you were a marketing degree undergrad, right?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Do you mind?
Sorry. Yeah,
that's okay.
You were a marketing degree. That's what your major was? Yeah.
Yes, marketing, and then a minor in communications. Yeah.
Okay, and you're in sports now, but I know you said you were an open book, so marketing probably made a lot of sense for you because you get exposed to a lot of things. I know in counseling equipment sometimes I have students who are struggling with specializing their marketing degree. So at St. Joe's, there's pharma marketing, there's sports marketing, and sometimes students can feel as though if they haven't specialized, it's too broad and they're not going to be qualified for things, which is not the case. Here you are, you're working in sports, you were able to do that. You can probably work in a lot of other fields as well. So what was your intention when you moved into marketing? And now that you're in sports, are you thinking, if you were to go back, would you have been a sports marketing major or no?
No, it's actually so funny that you asked, because I started as a sports marketing major. That's the scary thing. I started as undergrad as a sports marketing major. At the time, I was a freshman, sophomore. I wanted to do a lot of like broadcast sports, if that makes sense. Like in my eyes, I was the next Erin Andrews. But now I remember it was in between first and second semester, sophomore year, I had like a really in-depth conversation with my family, just being like, I don't know that that's for sure where I want to go anymore. So for me, the best thought at the time was to be able to just take a step back. And I think marketing, I had already kind of taken some of the classes in that realm. I knew between all the different niches in marketing, like what opportunities there were. I didn't have to do sports. I didn't have to do food. I didn't have to do pharma. So for me, like finishing college with that capability kind of at least let me take classes in the different areas. I took a food marketing class. I took a sports marketing class. did I take a pharma class? I can't remember if I took a pharma class, but I tried to, like my electives, to use those areas as like the experience. And I remember my food marketing class with Professor Latella senior year. I remember it was Thursday night class. And I just remember sitting there and being like, I could really see myself doing this too. So I never really shut the door on anything. And I think, especially when it comes to marketing, even if you find yourself in one certain field after college, you're always going to have a marketing degree from St. Joe's, which speaks wonders. So you can kind of take that step back. And if you switch from food to sports or anything else, there's always kind of that underlying theme that like you get the market, you get, the industry, if that makes sense. So even if you don't decide in college which niche you're going into, I feel as though every one of them is a possibility. And, some might require a little bit more school, whether that's pharma and how deep you're going into that industry. But at least, the options were there. And I was very excited to have options, to say the least.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I actually have one more over here.
Go for it, down here.
Another one came in the chat. Were there any internships that you had during college that helped you land your post-grad internship?
During college, I just did internships in other industries. I worked with Philly Mag in a integrated marketing and special events internship. And then I actually worked on campus as a marketing intern for the Kinney Center. So I did marketing and social media for them. And then I also helped to plan their 5K my senior year. So there weren't exactly any that like led right to sports, but I think the experience that I got out of both of the Kinney Center and then also Philly Mag, it taught me a lot about like how I can be in an industry setting or in hospitality settings, all that type of stuff, and the rights and the do's and do nots, all that type of stuff. So I think that experience alone only then further helped my path towards my postgrad internship and then now my full-time position. Yeah,
absolutely. Christine, are you good?
I'm good over here. And I guess we can one final call, students. We're at 12:56, so I just want to make sure everyone feels like they got the opportunity to ask Emily anything they're curious about. It seems like the students here are all set.
Cool.
I don't have anything coming through, so Dovier, I'll let you close us out.
Absolutely. Well, Emily, we just want to say thank you. What a great conversation we were able to have.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Absolutely. See, and we were talking about setting the bar. Come on, the bar is high. Come on.
I was nervous.
But listen, we hope to see you back soon. Just a reminder for everybody else, this will be on YouTube in about a week or so. So if you want to rewatch it, send it to a friend, do that. But come on back next week, October 6th. We'll have another conversation with one of our alumni guests. So thank y'all so much. And we'll see y'all later.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.